So people have been asking me more and more about what I'm doing to uh, stay healthy and keep functioning. The recovery piece is a gigantic piece of any training protocol. Um, what I'm doing is I'm getting adjusted a couple times a week. I'm gonna start doing that every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then I'm getting two massages a week, usually about an hour, and that's really beneficial. Doing tissue work when you're trying to train for growth or movement or anything like that is really important, um, because when you're doing a little bit of damage to yourself, because that's what you're doing when you're training, you're doing a little bit of damage to yourself, hoping that your body has the ability to recover, regrow, and polish that piece off. So let's say that you break yourself down 3 units, but your body has the ability to rebuild 4 or 5. That's positive. The problem we get into is that sometimes, because we don't get enough sleep, or we have too much stress, or we push ourselves a little bit too hard 4 or 5 days in a row, your body can't regenerate at the same level it needs to. And a lot of people are like, well, I worked arms yesterday, I'm working chest today, I'm working legs tomorrow, so my body has time to regenerate and heal. You have to think of it as a holistic unit. You're not just arms or legs or back or by a push pull, whatever it is. You're not just that unit. Your entire body has to heal, regenerate, and repair. That's also your brain, your heart, your intestines, your bones. All those things have to, even the stuff that you're not quote unquote working, you still have to regenerate, repair, and heal. So you're constantly in this state of regeneration and healing. And so that's what all the supplementation is for. That's what everything else is for. And we talk about the supplementation. We're going to do some more of that this week. But the big thing is that you have to do the things that are physically uh, dealing with the tissues. So getting adjusted helps the joints move in the right plane, in the right range of motion, making sure that you don't have little catch points. A lot of times people are like, oh, it's just irritating. Well, that irritation is changing the way your body moves. So lots of times we'll see people who have an ankle issue or a foot issue, and it changes the way they walk or their gait. And that affects their ankle, their hip, their knee, their low back, their mid back, the whole thing. Um, so that's a big piece. You have to make sure everything's where it's supposed to be in order to do everything you're trying to do. The other thing is that the chiropractic piece is very much joint oriented, but there's a tremendous amount of neurology that goes into it. Whatever the muscles clamp down on those nerves, it decreases the function of that nerve. It will also change the way that that joint complex moves. So if you have, for instance, an issue in your upper back, lower neck, that can greatly affect the way the shoulder blade moves, the way the shoulder itself moves. And so you don't necessarily feel it, but after a while, you're like, man, I've got this big knot in my shoulder now. I don't know how it got there. Well, it got there because you had an issue a day, 3 days, a week, a month ago that wasn't corrected. And so that muscle tension held lactic acid and it created a knot. And so now you have an issue. And so long before things hurt, they're causing an issue. How big of an issue that is depends on the person, where it is, that type of thing. So we've got to get those things knocked out. That's why I'm getting adjusted so often. The massages are really helpful. It's funny. I noticed this myself, and I talk to other people, and they're like, you know what? When I'm training, as long as I'm getting massages, this part of my back or my shoulder or my hip doesn't hurt. But whenever I stop getting the massages, it starts hurting, and it affects the way I work out or the way I train or performance, whatever. That's very common. Too many people rely on pain as the motivator to have them do something therapeutic wise for the body. The problem is that by the time it hurts enough for you to do something about it, it's been there a long time. And it's going to take us a while to walk that pain back down and then restore function. I've seen athletes who wait till they hurt, and instead of coming in once or twice a week, now they come in 3 times a week for 3 or 4 weeks. Now the pain's subsided after 3 or 4 weeks, but their actual proper joint mechanics and joint function don't restore for another 2-3 weeks after that. So instead of coming in once or twice a week, trying to save time and energy, now they've come in 3 times a week for a month. So it just kind of depends on when you want to pay for your issues. Do you want to pay for it in a maintenance form where you do a little bit all the time, or do you want to do a whole lot and hope that you can regain function in the middle of it? And we've seen tons and tons of athletes who choose I'll wait till it hurts, and they get to the point where I'm like, you've got to stop for 3 or 4 days, because the way the tone is set up, like, you can get adjusted every day, but you've got to kind of pull back just a little bit. And we try really hard never to take an athlete out of their sport, but sometimes athletes do it to themselves. So as you're starting to do something, when something becomes uncomfortable, not hurting, but uncomfortable for more than, say, 2 or 3 days, So if you're working out and you're like, oh, my shoulder, my elbow, my left pinky toe, whatever, feels weird, give it a day or two. If it doesn't stop feeling weird, you need to get in and get it checked, because that can really derail a lot of what you're trying to do. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I've had an elbow thing for a little bit, and it's weird because curls don't hurt it. Like the weird stuff, like distractive things hurt it. Like so when I'm doing lateral crunches or something like that. So, but as I get it adjusted, it feels a lot better. So I'm getting that worked on. Last week I got worked on almost every day. But that's kind of keeping that where it is. The other thing is I'm in my hyperbaric chamber 4-5 hours a week. And that's really, really beneficial. Increasing that oxygenation of the tissues is gigantic. It's amazing how, like, my athletes will tell you the same thing. This is why all my NFL athletes, all my pro NBA, all my pro athletes have hyperbaric chambers in their house, is because the amount of that lactic acid, that burn, that ache, that joint pain really helps get denatured and flushed out with all that extra oxygen. So, because you can get increased oxygenation to the tissue by 1,000% with hyperbaric. It fills the red blood cells, and then it fills the plasma or the water between the red blood cells. So you're carrying tremendous amounts more oxygen, and that's always beneficial for regeneration, healing, health, that type of thing. So those are some of the things we're doing. The massages are fantastic. You can feel it as they go over those little knots and stuff, and you can feel it loosening up and breaking up. So that's fantastic. I also use a lacrosse ball. Probably one of my favorite physio tools is my lacrosse ball. And I'll lay on that, I'll wiggle around, and I'll break up, tension, stuff like that as well. So there's a lot of tissue work that I'm doing on an almost daily basis, and we're going to pick that up a little bit, because that's a giant piece of keeping the machine where it needs to be. That's, I think, probably the maintenance stuff, the recovery stuff is the piece that people don't talk about enough. They talk about the training, they talk about the lifting, that's the fun part. They talk about the diet, that's not as fun. Very rarely do we see people talking about supplementation if it's not, testosterone or whey protein, which is, the whey protein thing. I don't even take whey. I think it's completely useless, because your body doesn't want protein; it wants amino acids. So I use collagen, I use leucine, isoleucine, the branch chains to activate the muscle protein synthesis, and then it uses the collagen proteins, the amino acids there, to regenerate and build everything. Whey protein has to be digested, broken down, absorbed, and then it has to be activated. The reason why whey is used the most is because if you pick a protein, whey has the highest concentration of leucine, and leucine has the highest concentration of muscle protein synthesis factor of any of the amino acids. So again, it goes back to chemistry, whether you knew why you were taking something or not. Pea is very similar to whey in that faction, and that's why you'll see the plant-based ones all based on pea. Plant-based is normally worse for you than animal-based, just as a general amount of stuff in the populace. The plant-based stuff has tremendous amounts of chemicals in it. You're going to have more things like glyphosate, things like atrazine, things like that in them. Even if they're organic and that type of thing, there's a lot of, so like for instance, soy is organic. You can have all kinds of soy. There's a lot of soy that isn't organic, and it makes it into most of the stuff because the labels on what's organic allow for certain things that are bad for you. But soy is one of the biggest producers of estrogen, and estrogen is counterproductive to growth. It's highly catabolic, which means it makes your body kind of dissolve and fall apart, when you really want to minimize the amount of estrogens that are in the body. So you really got to watch the plant-based stuff, because that stuff is typically bad. But you can do a vegetarian, like a base diet, as long as it's fresh vegetables that you grow yourself or you get from a farmer's market, where the chemicals that were used, and the plants, and the surrounding things that were grown, and the soil composition it was grown in. That you can do, but you have to supplement just as much with that one. So watching your recovery is a big piece. So getting adjusted, getting the massage work, doing your stretching, doing your physio work like I do with, you can use foam rollers, which are fine, especially for IT and stuff like that. But I'm a much bigger fan of lacrosse balls. They can really get in there and kind of work stuff out. So those are the type of things that you guys need to kind of focus on, that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, because one, it's not sexy and fun, and two, it makes nobody any money. Me telling you to grab a lacrosse ball and roll around on the ground doesn't benefit me in any way. So I think, or anyone who's telling you that. So I think that's one of the things. So we're going to make some videos on that just for fun. But the other cool thing is that a lot of you guys have been asking about the diet, how do you make the food and stuff like that. So my wife Lou has been nice enough to agree to make some videos. So she's going to start doing that this weekend. And hopefully we'll have some videos in about a week or two to post on the pillarsofwellness.com website. So you guys can check that out. This is kind of a work in progress. So we're going to do some stuff and you guys give us some comments on if it was helpful or that type of thing. But we've got a bunch of recipes that we've either used already or that things we wanted to try or things other people have sent to us. So we have tons and tons of recipes that we can kind of walk through and figure out this was difficult, this wasn't. And so we'll kind of put that out. So those are coming to the Pillars of Wellness website. So start checking that out and we'll get everything going. So thanks for your time and we'll talk to you guys later today.